When President Obama called for a renaissance of American manufacturing last month, he may as well have been speaking directly to the country's emerging solar industry. Solar represents about 1% of America's energy portfolio, with just under 1 gigawatt of utility-scale capacity. But the future looks exceedingly bright, with nearly 27 gigawatts of solar either under construction or under development. Most of this growth is expected to come from the emergence of large-scale PV. So the question remains, can the U.S. position itself to become a major manufacturer in the growing domestic market? And what steps will the industry need to take to get there? We posed these questions to industry and business leaders during Intersolar North America in San Francisco.
It's interesting. I think when you look historically, the United States was the largest manufacturer of photovoltaics in the world, just going back about 12 years ago, and we've lost that leadership to countries like Germany, Japan, and most recently China. But in 2010, we've seen U.S. manufacturing of cells, wafers, and modules actually increase fairly substantially. Wafers increased by 80%, cells by a little over 30%, and module manufacturing increased by 20%. And when we look down the road with First Solar and GE and some of the other announcements and factories that are under construction, we think that the U.S. is going to make a very strong play for reclaiming a major leadership role in manufacturing photovoltaics.
According to Graham Stevens of Navigant Consulting, the question isn't whether the U.S. will be a player in solar manufacturing, but rather what will its role be. Right now, about 80% of PV modules produced are made with crystalline silicon, and about 15 to 20% are glass-based thin film. Manufacturers like First Solar, the world leader in thin film technology, may be especially poised to tap into the expected spike in domestic demand.
That the glass costs are a much larger proportion of their total cost, and shipping glass around is an expensive proposition. So generally you want to locate the plant as close to the end use as possible. And so for thin film we would see more manufacturing in the U.S. and that'll depend on how well thin film competes with crystalline silicon as time goes on. And aside from First Solar, there are a number of thin film solar companies that are finishing their first plants and just ramping up into full-blown production.
One of those emerging thin film manufacturers is U.S.-based Abound Solar, which received a $400 million Department of Energy loan guarantee that would help it triple its capacity at its current 65-megawatt plant in Loveland, Colorado. It will also help them open up a new 640-megawatt facility in Tipton, Indiana. The company is doing early infrastructure work on a never-been-used auto industry factory that was essentially abandoned during the financial collapse of 2008. With DOE backing, company officials are planning to hire staff next year and remain hopeful that the Indiana plant will be at full capacity by the end of 2014.
When we went down the DOE process, of course, that meant we were going to be doing the manufacturing in the United States, which was our preference for a variety of reasons anyway. And we did an exhaustive nationwide search. We needed to have a production facility that was already built, so we were not in a greenfield build-the-building situation. And we did a screen that looked at which buildings were large enough and had the right infrastructure already there, labor force, a whole variety of things. And there were 2 or 3 sites that came out of that search as high priority sites to look at, but far and away this site in Indiana met our needs, and it really was perfect. And then as we got going and worked with the state and local entities, they were extremely supportive.
You manufacture where your market is, and the more we grow the market in the U.S., the more manufacturing will be attracted to the U.S. and in places outside of California. You know, we're seeing manufacturing come to Mississippi and South Carolina and Tennessee and Michigan and those places which are absolutely crucial for our economic recovery as a country.
The Southwest has become a leader in planned development, and Arizona in particular has moved aggressively to attract projects and businesses. Suntech is a world leader with a 1 gigawatt manufacturing capacity in China, but the company recently opened a small facility in Goodyear, Arizona, one that it plans to add on to if the conditions are right.
Well, we saw a very long-term market here that's going to continue to grow and expand and present more and more opportunity for the company. We also had a great workforce, great supply chain, and a proximity to that new market growth. So in the future, where we see opportunity around the world that's very stable and very large scale, I think we'll continue to repeat this process of building production closer and closer to our customers.
Still, questions remain both about oversupply in the module market and looming uncertainty about the future of incentives.
In the Recovery Act, there was a tax credit for new manufacturing facilities, a 30% tax credit. That program supported over 50 new manufacturing facilities for the solar industry alone. Now, unfortunately, that expired, and so there is no federal support for new manufacturing. We're working with the administration, we're working with Congress to try to reinstate those incentives, just so manufacturers who are looking to scale up will choose the U.S. over China or other countries. Right now, there's a global surplus of modules, and those modules are being attracted increasingly to the United States. And those are coming from Europe, they're coming from China, they're coming from Korea, from Japan, and other places around the world. So we're going to have to work very hard to ensure that manufacturing continues to grow in the U.S. just to service our own market.